The war had lasted for many years. Star systems burned, fleets were destroyed, and the voices of entire species faded into silence. The Dominion, a cold and powerful alien empire, stood above all others. Their war machines were vast, their soldiers without mercy, and their leaders believed themselves chosen to rule the stars. One by one, the free worlds fell. The Valari Union, once proud and bright, fought until their ships were nothing but drifting fire. The Traxa, the Mevans, the Oran clans, all of them had tried to resist. None had survived. The Dominion left their mark wherever they went. Broken cities, silent oceans, and people who no longer believed in freedom. On the Valari capital world, Vora Prime, the sky was black with smoke. The once beautiful towers of glass and silver now lay in ruins. The Dominion's banners hung from what was left of the great council halls. Drones flew above, watching for any sign of rebellion. Inside the shattered parliament chamber, Ambassador Saren Valara stood beside a cracked window. Her silver-blue skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Behind her, the last few members of the Valari Council sat in silence, their faces showing both exhaustion and fear. "They have taken every world in our system," one of them whispered. "There is nothing left to fight for." Saren turned slowly to face him. "There is always something to fight for," she said quietly. Her voice was calm but carried a deep sadness, even if it is only hope. The sound of engines filled the air outside as Dominion ships passed low over the city. Their loudspeakers declared, "The Dominion brings order. Resistance is over. The age of rebellion has ended." Every word felt like a chain around the hearts of the people. Saren closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered the first time she had met humans, many generations ago, before they had vanished beyond their solar borders. Back then, they had been small compared to the great powers of the galaxy. But they had something others didn't. They were stubborn, brave, and full of fire. "Do you think they still live?" One of the younger counselors asked suddenly. "The humans?" Saren looked up. "I do not know," she said softly. "Some say their wars destroyed them. Others say they went into hiding. But if they still exist, they will not ignore this." Far away, beyond the Dominion's reach, there was silence, cold and deep. Among the stars near the edge of the galaxy lay a forgotten system. Its sun was weak, its planets barren except for one, Outpost Helios 9, a lonely human station orbiting a dead world. Inside that station, machines had slept for centuries. The corridors were dusty, the lights dim, and the air quiet except for the hum of old reactors. Then one day a signal arrived. It was faint, broken by distance, but clear enough for the station's ancient sensors to catch. A Dominion broadcast spreading across the galaxy. "We have won. The age of resistance is finished. The galaxy belongs to the Dominion." The message played again and again. It reached the central control room of Helios 9, where an old holographic globe flickered to life. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a deep mechanical voice spoke. "Signal detected. Classification, hostile empire. Command, awakened Terran defense network." A series of lights turned from red to green. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, massive machines began to stir. The air filled with dust as sealed doors opened after centuries of stillness. In the command room, a man slowly opened his eyes. His name was Commander Elias Ward. His body had been kept in stasis. Since the final years of the solar wars, the machines revived him because the code had been clear. If humanity's enemies ever declared total rule over the galaxy, humanity would answer. Ward gasped for air as the cryo chamber released him. He stumbled forward, gripping the edge of the console. His dark eyes stared at the holographic message, repeating over and over, the Dominion's proud declaration of victory. He listened in silence until the recording ended. Then he spoke, his voice rough but steady. "They shouldn't have claimed victory," he said. "Not while humans are still breathing." The AI beside him activated, projecting a faint light in the air. "Commander Ward, systems are operational. Terran fleets are dormant in Mars Command and Luna Arsenal, awaiting orders." Ward straightened, wiping the frost from his arms. He looked out the viewport at the faint light of a dying sun. "Send the signal," he said. "Wake them all. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity never vanished. We were only sleeping." Across the Sol system, ancient defense satellites came online. On the moon, the long-dead Luna Arsenal flickered with energy. Deep in the Martian canyons, under red dust and steel, enormous factories roared to life. Machines built to last 1,000 years began producing power again. Old ships, massive, dark, and silent, rose from beneath the Martian crust. Their hulls bore the markings of the Terran fleet. The ships had been left in hiding, waiting for the right time. And now, that time had come. Back on Vora Prime, the Dominion celebrated their victory. Their leader, Overlord Caress, stood before millions of soldiers and broadcast his speech across every captured world. "The galaxy is ours," he declared. "The last light of rebellion has been crushed. The weak races are now under our command. We are eternal." The crowd stood silent. None dared cheer too loudly. They knew the cost of defiance. But in secret, the message traveled again, beyond Dominion space, and reached those who had been forgotten. In her ruined office, Ambassador Saren watched the broadcast with hollow eyes. Then, unexpectedly, a second message appeared on her communication screen. It was short and the language was old. A human code. From ancient times it read, "Transmission from Sol. To those who declared victory, prepare to prove it." Saren's hands trembled as she read the words. Her advisors looked at her in confusion. "What is it?" one asked. Saren slowly smiled for the first time in years. "It means," she whispered, "the humans are coming." In the dark reaches of space, fleets began to move. Small outposts on forgotten moons picked up strange energy readings. Dominion patrols vanished without trace. Unidentified ships, large and silent, were spotted near the border systems. Commander Ward stood on the bridge of the first reawakened human ship, the TDS Resolute. Its metallic body gleamed like a blade in the starlight. Around it, hundreds of warships prepared to form a fleet not seen in centuries. "Sir," a young officer said, "the galaxy believes humanity is extinct. Should we send a warning?" Ward looked at the stars. "No," he said. "Let them believe what they want until we arrive." The officer nodded. "What is our first target?" Ward's eyes hardened. "The Dominion fleet over Valari space. They made an example of those people. We'll return the favor." The engines ignited with a deep roar, and the human fleet began to move. Quiet, invisible, unstoppable. Meanwhile, on Dominion command ships, confusion spread. Their sensors detected movements they could not explain. Ghost signals, distorted readings, sudden losses of patrols. Reports came from border worlds, fleets missing, colonies silent, garrisons gone. Overlord Caress dismissed it at first. "Pirates," he said. "Scavengers." But soon entire Dominion strike groups vanished. The commanders tried to contact them, but there was no reply. Only silence and then static filled with an ancient sound, a human heartbeat signal. The Dominion's pride began to shake. For the first time in centuries, fear returned to their ranks. On a quiet observation deck aboard the Resolute, Commander Ward stood alone, watching the stars drift past. He thought of the message that had awakened him. He thought of the world suffering under Dominion rule. He whispered to himself, "You thought the war was over. You were wrong." The stars reflected in his eyes as the fleet accelerated toward Valari space. The void was silent except for the deep thrum of human engines. The forgotten species had returned, and the illusion of the Dominion's victory was about to end. The stars over Valari space were calm that night. The Dominion fleet floated above the ruined capital world, their ships dark and cold like black knives in the void. The Dominion believed the rebellion was truly over. Their generals celebrated. Their soldiers rested. They thought no enemy remained. They were wrong. Far across the galaxy, beyond known space, humanity had awakened. Old factories glowed once again on Mars and Luna. The broken cities of Earth's orbit now shone with light as energy returned to ancient stations. Humanity's silence had ended. Commander Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the human flagship TDS Resolute, watching as his ship and hundreds of others prepared for their first jump into enemy territory. All around him, the bridge was alive. Screens flickered with coordinates. Officers spoke quietly and the hum of powerful reactors filled the air. These were not new ships. They were ancient war vessels built when humanity had fought its last great war, the Solar Wars, many centuries ago. But unlike the Dominion, Humans did not forget how to fight. They simply stopped when there was no reason to continue. Now they had a reason again. Ward folded his hands behind his back. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with purpose. "Status report," he said. Lieutenant Mira Halen, the ship's navigator, answered. "All fleets report ready, sir." "Jump drives charged. Weapons online," Ward nodded. "Good, set course for Valari space. Quiet approach. No warnings." Mira hesitated. "Sir, do we announce ourselves before engaging?" Ward looked out into the dark and smiled faintly. "No, they already announced victory. Let them believe it a little longer." As the order was given, the Terran fleet moved through the void. They traveled using dark slip corridors, ancient human technology that allowed silent movement faster than light. No Dominion sensor could track it. Inside the slipstream, the fleet moved like shadows, unseen, unstoppable. Across the ships, soldiers trained and prepared. Many were descendants of those who had fought the solar wars. They had been born in isolated colonies, told stories about Earth, about courage, and about the promise that humanity always returns when the universe calls for help. Some were engineers, scientists, or medics who had never seen battle before, but now every one of them had a purpose: to free the galaxy from tyranny. In the Resolute's main hall, Ward gathered his officers for a briefing. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing Dominion-occupied regions. "The Dominion believes they own everything within the Orion sector," Ward said. "They destroyed fleets, crushed rebellions, and silenced worlds. They think no one can stand against them." He paused, looking at each officer in turn. "But they made one mistake. They broadcast their victory across the stars, and that signal reached us." The officers stood straight, silent but filled with energy. "Our mission," Ward continued, "is not conquest. We do not fight for power. We fight to break chains, theirs and everyone else's. Once we start, we do not stop until they understand what humans stand for." He ended with a single line that echoed through the hall. "Prepare to remind the galaxy who we are." On Vora Prime, the Valari capital, Ambassador Saren Valara sat in a hidden shelter beneath the ruins of the old city. She listened to the whispers that spread through the underground networks. Some said strange ships had been seen near the borders. Others spoke of entire Dominion patrols disappearing. When she heard the rumors, her heart beat faster. She wanted to believe, but she had seen too much loss to hope easily. Then, one night, her communicator lit up. The signal was clear and strong, written in an old code she recognized instantly. It was human. The message was simple. "Ambassador Saren Valara, this is Commander Elias Ward of the Terran Fleet. Do not lose faith. Help is coming." She stared at the message for a long time. Then she closed her eyes, whispering, "So they live. They truly live." Back aboard the Resolute, the human fleet dropped out of the slipstream near a remote Dominion supply world named Kareth 4. The planet was surrounded by 5 Dominion battle cruisers, their hulls shining in blue and black colors. Ward stood ready on the command bridge. "Open communication to all ships," he said. "No one fires until I give the order." The fleet waited in perfect silence. The Dominion cruisers, unaware of who they were facing, sent a signal. "Unidentified fleet, this space belongs to the Dominion. Identify yourself or be destroyed." Ward smiled slightly and nodded to the communications officer. "Send message. Transmission from Sol to those who declared victory. Prepare to prove it." The message was transmitted. Seconds later, the Dominion commander laughed through the open channel. "Humans, a dead race dares challenge us? Amusing." Ward said nothing. He simply gave the order. "Fire." The human ships moved as one. From the Resolute's broadside came bright lances of light, rail cannons that tore through space at unimaginable speed. Each shot pierced a Dominion cruiser's shields and armor in seconds. Explosions rippled across the void. In less than 3 minutes, all 5 Dominion ships were gone, destroyed before they could even send a distress call. The Dominion outpost below burned, and in orbit the human fleet stood untouched. Word spread quickly. Across the Dominion territories, reports came of new fleets destroying garrisons and freeing slaves. At first, the Dominion commanders dismissed it. Then the losses grew, 10 fleets gone in a single day. The Overlord, Karess, gathered his high command in the grand chamber of the Dominion Citadel. "Who are they?" he demanded. "Who dares attack the Dominion?" One of his advisors trembled. We believe it is humanity, my lord. The ones thought extinct. Caress's eyes narrowed. Extinct things do not destroy my fleets. Find them. End them. But it was already too late. Everywhere the humans went, people rose up. The Valari began to fight again, inspired by hope. On the liberated worlds, the once broken species cheered as the human ships descended from the sky. When Saren saw the first human vessel land on Vora Prime, she stood before it with tears in her eyes. The ramp lowered, and soldiers in dark armor stepped out. At their head was Elias Ward. For a long moment she could not speak. Then she said quietly, "We thought you were gone." Ward smiled slightly. "We were," he said, "but we woke up when someone called for help." She bowed her head. "The galaxy is broken, Commander. The Dominion has crushed everything." Ward looked at the destroyed skyline behind her. "Then we'll start fixing it here." The battle for Vora Prime was short but fierce. The Dominion tried to defend the planet, but their ships were old and predictable. The humans moved with precision, striking at weak points and avoiding unnecessary damage to cities. For the first time in years, the Valari people saw the Dominion flee. When the final Dominion ship was destroyed, Saren watched from the ground as human medical teams helped her people. Soldiers handed out water, food, and supplies. No one acted like conquerors. They acted like rescuers. One Valari child tugged on a human soldier's sleeve and asked, "Are you the heroes from the old stories?" The soldier smiled and answered, "No. We're just people who came to help." The child nodded, eyes wide with wonder. From the command center, Ward watched the reports come in. System after system was falling out of Dominion control. But he knew the war was far from over. The Dominion still had the Void Gate, their central fortress that connected hundreds of systems. He turned to his officers. "They'll come for us soon," he said. "They'll bring everything they have." Lieutenant Mira asked, "Can we win, sir?" Ward looked thoughtful. "Winning isn't the goal," he said quietly. "Surviving with purpose is, and showing the galaxy that freedom is worth the fight." In the Dominion capital, Overlord Caress stared at the burning reports. His perfect empire was cracking. The illusion of control was gone. "Find them!" he roared. "Bring me proof that humanity can bleed." But no proof came. Only silence followed, and the faint echo of a transmission spreading through every star. To those who claimed victory, humanity has arrived. The galaxy trembled. For the first time in centuries, the people of countless worlds looked to the stars and smiled. The sleeping lions had awakened, and they were no longer silent. The galaxy had begun to change. In the weeks after humanity's return, whispers turned into hope, and hope turned into courage. Worlds that had once lived in fear started to rise again. Dominion banners were torn down, and people painted new symbols of freedom across the ruins. But while the small victories spread light across the darkness, the Dominion still held power. Their empire stretched across hundreds of systems, and their pride refused to die easily. On the human flagship TDS Resolute, Commander Elias Ward stood before the central star map. The holographic projection showed red zones across the galaxy, Dominion space. Blue lights marked the liberated worlds. Every day the blue grew larger, yet Ward knew the fight was just beginning. In the control room, Lieutenant Mira Halen approached him with a data pad. "Sir, new transmissions from the Valari Council. They say the Dominion is gathering fleets in the Draven sector. It may be a trap." Ward took the data pad, reading quickly. "It will be," he said calmly. "They're angry now. They can't believe someone dared to challenge their control." Mira nodded. "Our scouts report heavy battleships 3 times the size of ours." Ward smiled faintly. "Size doesn't win wars. Will does." On Vora Prime, life was slowly returning. Ambassador Saren Valara stood at the balcony of a repaired building, watching as humans and Valari worked together. Human engineers taught Valari workers how to rebuild power grids and shield networks. Children from both species played in the streets under the open sky. The sight brought tears to Saren's eyes. For the first time in many years, her people laughed. She turned as a communication device buzzed softly. The holographic image of Commander Ward appeared. "Ambassador," he greeted politely. "Commander," she said with a small smile. "Your people have done more in weeks than we managed in decades." Ward shook his head. "Your people never stopped hoping. That's harder than fighting." Saren's expression softened. "You give us too much credit. Hope is never small." Ward replied simply. Then his tone turned serious. We're moving out soon. The Dominion is preparing something large. We can't stay defensive. Saren's eyes widened. You mean to attack? Yes, Ward said. We have to take the fight to them before they rebuild control. If we hesitate, they'll strike harder next time. Saren bowed her head. Then the stars watch over you, Commander. The Valari will aid you in any way we can. Ward nodded once. We'll fight together. Always. In the Draven sector, the Dominion gathered a massive force, hundreds of warships, each armed with devastating plasma weapons. At the center of the fleet was Admiral Reth Kalor, one of the most feared commanders in the Dominion Empire. He stood in his command chamber, studying the reports of human attacks. His scaled face showed no emotion, but inside anger burned like fire. These humans, they are different, one of his officers said nervously. They don't retreat. They don't negotiate. Reth Kalor's voice was cold. That is what makes them dangerous. But they bleed. All creatures bleed, and we will prove that soon enough. He turned to the stars and clenched his clawed hand. Send the message. The Dominion fleet moves now. Hours later, the stars around the Draven sector lit up with human energy signatures. The Terran fleet, supported by Valari and Mevin ships, emerged from the slipstream corridor. Ward stood on the bridge, calm as ever. All ships form defensive line, he ordered. No one breaks formation. The enemy fleet appeared like a storm, massive, endless, shining with deadly energy. The Dominion had brought everything they could. Lieutenant Mira swallowed hard. There are hundreds of them, sir. Ward's voice was quiet but firm. Then there are enough targets. The battle began with a flash brighter than a star. Dominion ships fired plasma lances across space, tearing through shields. Human vessels answered with rail cannons and pulse arrays. The Resolute moved like a dancer through fire, striking and vanishing. Human pilots used unpredictable maneuvers the Dominion could not match. On one Dominion cruiser, a commander shouted, "They are everywhere! They move faster than sensors can track." Reth Kalor growled. "Then fire at everything." But it was too late. Human strike fighters, small, fast, and fearless, cut through the Dominion fleet, targeting engines and reactors instead of weapons. Every explosion was precise. Every move had purpose. Admiral Reth watched in disbelief as 1/3 of his ships were lost within the first hour. He had never seen such coordination. How can they fight like this? He muttered. His second officer answered shakily, They don't fear death, sir. They fight like it already happened. Reth's eyes widened slightly. For the first time, he felt something he had not known in years: fear. In the middle of the battle, Ward stood calm, giving clear commands. He knew every loss, every risk, every life taken, but he also knew what was at stake: the freedom of entire species. Redirect power to the forward shields, he ordered. Keep firing on their flagship. The Dominion flagship loomed ahead like a floating mountain. It was twice the size of the Resolute, armed with heavy plasma cannons. Target locked, Mira said. Ward nodded. Fire all batteries. The ship shook as the main cannons unleashed a wave of white-hot projectiles. The Dominion flagship's shields cracked like glass. Inside the Dominion command room, alarms screamed. Admiral Reth shouted orders, but his systems failed one by one. He turned toward his officers. Prepare emergency jump. But before they could, the Resolute fired one final shot. A kinetic round that pierced the enemy flagship's reactor. A white explosion spread through the void, tearing the ship apart. The battle was over. Hours later, silence filled the stars. Dominion wreckage drifted in the cold darkness. Human rescue ships moved among the remains, saving whoever they could, even Dominion survivors. Ward stood on the deck of the Resolute, looking at the field of broken ships. He felt no joy, only purpose. Lieutenant Mira approached. Sir, victory confirmed. The Dominion fleet is gone. Ward nodded slowly. This wasn't victory, he said. It was a message. A message, sir? Yes, Ward said quietly. The galaxy needs to see that the Dominion can be defeated. And the Dominion needs to see what happens when they underestimate humanity. Back on Vora Prime, the news spread like wildfire. Every screen, every network, every transmission repeated the same words. The Dominion fleet in Draven sector has fallen. Humanity leads the charge. Freedom rises again. Crowds filled the streets. The Valari sang old songs that had been forbidden for generations. Saren stood before her people, speaking through the Grand Plaza. "The fire has returned to the stars," she declared. "And it was carried by those who came when all others were silent, the humans." The crowd cheered until the skies echoed. Meanwhile, in the Dominion capital, Overlord Caress watched the recordings of the battle in disbelief. He saw human ships weaving through his armada like shadows of vengeance, his claws dug into the armrest of his throne. "They fight like the storms of creation," he hissed. "No mercy. No hesitation. What drives them?" His advisor trembled. "Hope, my lord. They fight for others, not just themselves." Caress rose slowly. "Then we will crush that hope. Prepare the Starbreaker." At those words, the entire command chamber fell silent. The Starbreaker was an ancient Dominion weapon, a sun killer capable of burning whole systems. Caress turned to the dark window and stared into space. "If humanity wants fire," he whispered, "we will give them one." On the Resolute, Ward received intelligence reports of a massive energy buildup deep within Dominion space. He studied the data silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "They're preparing something worse. Something powerful enough to end everything." Mira frowned. "What do we do?" Ward looked at the stars. "We go there, and we stop it. Because that's what humans do." He turned to the communications officer. "Send a message to all allied worlds. Tell them the fire has returned. We're not done yet." Across the galaxy, humans and aliens alike heard the call. Ships were built, fleets united, and banners of freedom spread through the stars. The Dominion had ruled for centuries through fear. Now fear belonged to them, and as the human fleet prepared for the next great battle, one truth became clear. The age of silence was over. The fire had returned to the stars, and humanity was leading it. The Void Gate floated in the darkness of space like a silent sentinel. It was a massive gleaming structure, thousands of kilometers wide, connecting dozens of star systems. The Dominion had built it to control the galaxy, to expand their empire faster than anyone could resist. For centuries, no enemy had come close to challenging it. Now, humanity and their allies were about to do just that. On the bridge of the TDS Resolute, Commander Elias Ward studied the holographic map of the Void Gate and its defenses. Surrounding it were hundreds of Dominion warships, orbiting in tight formations armed with the deadliest weapons known to the galaxy. The Dominion expected invaders, but they had no idea what was coming. Ward turned to his officers. "We have one chance. One clear strike. Everyone knows their role. Precision is more important than speed. No unnecessary risks." Lieutenant Mira Halen nodded. "All fleets report ready, sir. Shields at maximum. Weapons online. Slip corridors mapped. We can approach undetected until the final jump." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Good. Begin the approach." Across the Allied fleet, thousands of ships moved silently through the void. The humans, Valari, and Mevan vessels formed an intricate pattern, weaving around each other to avoid detection. The Dominion had radar and sensor coverage across the entire sector, but human technology, ancient, advanced, and unpredictable, allowed them to remain invisible until they were ready to strike. Ambassador Saren Valara watched from her flagship with awe. The fleet's coordination was flawless. She whispered to her aide, "I have never seen anything like this. Humans, they do not just fight. They move like the stars themselves obey them." Ward's voice came over the comms. "Keep formation. The Dominion will know us soon, but we will be ready." Inside the Dominion fleet, Admiral Reth Kalor paced in his flagship. He had rebuilt his forces after the Draven sector disaster, and now the galaxy's most powerful weapon, the Void Gate, was under his direct control. "They are coming," a young officer said nervously. "Sensors indicate something approaching. Unidentified. Could be humans." Reth Kalor's eyes narrowed. "Humans," he hissed. "They were foolish to return. Prepare every cannon, every fighter. Do not allow them to pass." His fleet moved into tight defensive formations, energy shields glowing like ghostly barriers in space. But even with the vast numbers, Reth Kalor felt a rare unease. Humans were unpredictable. They did not fight like other species. They struck with precision, speed, and a purpose that terrified even the most seasoned Dominion officers. As the Allied fleet approached the Void Gate, Commander Ward gave his next order. "Slip corridor exit in 3, 2, 1, now." A wave of ships appeared just outside the Dominion perimeter, their weapons charged, engines glowing. The Dominion detected them instantly, but it was too late. The first human ship struck like lightning. Plasma cannons tore through defensive frigates. Railguns shredded enemy cruisers before they could even respond. The Dominion flagship closest to the gate was hit by a series of kinetic strikes that punctured its armor, sending fragments spinning into space. Admiral Reth-Kalor bellowed, "All units engage! Destroy them!" But the Allied fleet did not panic. Every move was coordinated. Human ships led the charge, drawing fire while Valari and Mevan units flanked the Dominion lines. Inside the Void Gate control hub, engineers and operators tried to maintain stability. The massive structure hummed with energy, channeling power from nearby stars to supply the Dominion war machine. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Void Gate's sensors detected breaches in the defensive perimeter. Entire squadrons had disappeared, replaced by the human fleet in deadly formations. Reth-Kalor's claws clenched. The humans. They know every weakness. "Send fighters! Do not let them touch the gate." But the human fleet was already in position. Ward gave the order, target the energy conduits. Keep the gate from generating full power. Energy beams lanced through the void, striking key nodes of the Void Gate. The structure shook, sparks of plasma lighting the darkness. Dominion shields flared and faltered. On the surface of nearby planets, populations watched from hidden observation stations. They could not believe what they were seeing. Entire fleets considered unstoppable were being torn apart. Human tactics, combining speed, intelligence, and courage, left no Dominion ship untouched. Ambassador Saren spoke to the gathered observers. "This is why humans are not just warriors. They are a force of will. They fight for hope, for freedom, for all of us." A young Valari soldier asked, "Can they really win?" Saren smiled softly. "If humans are with us." "Yes." Back on the Resolute, Ward's crew worked in silence. Every shot was calculated. Every maneuver was deliberate. And in the center of the battle, Ward watched as the Dominion Starbreaker power source began to glow, a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. "They're preparing it," Mira said, pointing to the readings. "If it fires, billions will die." Ward's expression hardened. "Then we stop it. Full power to the forward shields. Prepare boarding teams for the gate. We're not just attacking ships. We're ending this." Human boarding teams moved aboard smaller Dominion vessels surrounding the Void Gate. Silent, efficient, and unyielding, they disabled weapon systems, freed prisoners, and set charges on key nodes. The Dominion soldiers tried to resist, but human precision and determination left them outmatched. Aboard the Void Gate itself, Ward and a strike team infiltrated the control hub. Alarms screamed as Dominion engineers tried to protect the main core. Ward spoke into the comms. "We have the main hub. Initiating system override." The Void Gate's hum grew unstable. Sparks flew across consoles. Energy readings fluctuated wildly. The entire structure trembled. Outside, the Allied fleet faced heavy fire. Dominion ships tried to break the human line. But they were now fighting not just against soldiers. They were fighting strategy, precision, and willpower beyond anything they had ever encountered. One by one, Dominion cruisers exploded in waves of fire. Fighters were destroyed in mid-flight, and yet the human fleet advanced steadily, each ship following its assigned path as if guided by destiny itself. Inside the Void Gate, Ward reached the core. The Starbreaker's energy was being channeled through it. If it activated, countless systems would be obliterated. Ward placed a hand on the main console. "Initiate reverse energy protocol," he ordered. "Redirect the flow into the outer conduits. Collapse the gate." The system hummed and groaned. Dominion engineers shouted in panic. Energy beams lanced through the structure, feeding back into itself. Outside, Dominion ships shook as the Void Gate began to implode. Stars reflected in the human fleet's shields. Ward looked around at his team. "This is what it means to fight for everyone. Not just yourself," he said. A final surge of energy ripped through the Void Gate. The massive structure cracked, then shattered, sending fragments across the void. Dominion ships were thrown into chaos. Some were destroyed instantly. Others were forced to retreat. When the dust settled, the Allied fleet remained. Ships were battered, but intact. The Void Gate, the symbol of Dominion power, was gone. The Starbreaker's energy source was destroyed. Ward exhaled slowly. "Message delivered," he said. Lieutenant Mira smiled, exhausted. "The galaxy is safe. Ward shook his head slightly. Safe? Not yet. But we reminded the Dominion, their illusion of control is over. Back on Vora Prime, Ambassador Saren watched the transmissions. The Void Gate was gone. Dominion fleets were scattered. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. Humanity leading not just fleets, but freedom itself. She turned to the people around her. Remember this day, she said. The Dominion thought the stars belonged to them. They were wrong. Humanity arrived and the fire returned. In the Dominion capital, Overlord Caress stared at the reports. Rage burned in his chest. Entire fleets destroyed. The Void Gate, centuries of planning gone in hours. They fought with fire unlike anything I have seen. Caress muttered. How do they do this? His advisor trembled. My lord, it is hope, and willpower beyond measure. The humans fight for something greater than themselves. Caress slammed a claw into the console. Then we escalate. If they want fire, we will give it. The galaxy will burn before they stop us. On the Resolute, Ward stood at the observation deck, looking at the stars where the Void Gate had once been. He whispered to himself. They claimed victory too soon. A message came in from all allied worlds. Signals of thanks, relief, and courage. Humanity had shown that even the greatest power could be challenged when will and justice led the way. Ward's voice echoed across the deck, quiet but firm. The galaxy remembers now. The fire is ours, and it will not go out. The galaxy was quiet. For the first time in centuries, there was space between fleets and silence between the stars. The Dominion's empire had been shattered. Its fleets lay in ruin, its once feared commanders scattered. The Void Gate, the ultimate symbol of their control, had been destroyed. The Starbreaker, their deadliest weapon, was gone, and at the center of it all stood humanity. On the bridge of the TDS Resolute, Commander Elias Ward stared at the stars, calm but alert. His fleet was battered but intact. The Allied ships from Volari, Mevin, and other liberated species surrounded them, repairing damage and tending to their wounded. Lieutenant Mira Halen approached. Sir, all systems report stability. The Dominion fleet has retreated. Resistance in their territories is crumbling. Ward nodded slowly. Good, but victory isn't ours yet. Not until freedom reaches every star, every world, every people. Mira hesitated. Sir, after everything, do you think the Dominion will fight again? Ward's eyes narrowed. They will try. But they have learned something they cannot forget. Humans do not arrive late to a fight. And when we arrive, the illusion of their control ends. On Vora Prime, Ambassador Saren Valara watched the sun rise over a recovering city. The ruins had been cleared. Children played in the streets. Human and Volari engineers worked together to rebuild homes, schools, and communication networks. Saren felt a warmth she had not known in years. The darkness of Dominion rule had lifted. Freedom, once only a memory, was returning. A young Volari child tugged at her cloak. Ambassador, the humans saved us. Will they stay? Saren smiled. No, little one. Humans do not stay to rule. They came when we needed help. That is who they are. The child's eyes widened. They are heroes.
Heroes?
Saren laughed softly.
No, they are humans.
And when humans fight for what is right, heroes are born in their wake. Across the galaxy, liberated worlds celebrated. The Volari, Maven, Taraxa, and even smaller species came together in the largest gathering in centuries. Flags of their worlds flew side by side with the banner of humanity. In the liberated sectors, survivors told stories to children, stories of courage, hope, and unity. They spoke of human ships appearing in the darkest hours, of humans risking everything for those they had never met, of strength combined with mercy, and in every story, there was the same lesson. Never underestimate those who fight not for empire but for freedom. Meanwhile, in the Dominion capital, Overlord Caress sat alone. The halls of his palace were silent. His empire had fallen in weeks. Ships had been destroyed. Soldiers had surrendered and the Starbreaker was gone. He stared at a distant star and muttered, Humans. A trembling aide approached. My lord, what shall we do now? Caress's voice was low, almost defeated. We rebuild, but we remember, and we know. That hope is stronger than fear when humans are part of it. For the first time, the Overlord understood something his empire had never taught him. Domination alone could never control the galaxy. Courage and unity could. Back aboard the Resolute, Ward gathered his officers. The battle was over, but the work had only begun. Systems needed governance. Starways required security. Citizens demanded protection. Ward spoke clearly, his voice echoing across the bridge. The Dominion thought victory was theirs. They built walls, weapons, and fear. They claimed the galaxy was under control. But control without justice is only an illusion. And illusions are fragile, he paused, letting the words sink in. We fought not to conquer. We fought to restore freedom. The galaxy must know we do not leave when the fight is hardest. We arrive, and we arrive prepared. Lieutenant Mira Halen smiled. Sir, the galaxy will never forget this. Humanity's name will be spoken across star systems for generations. Ward's eyes softened. It should not be about us. It should be about every life freed, every world restored, every hope returned. That is what matters. That is what makes humans strong. On Vora Prime, Ambassador Saren led a ceremony in the Central Plaza. Representatives from dozens of worlds were present. She spoke into the assembly. The Dominion believed that fear could rule us, she said. They believed that no one would rise to challenge them. But they were wrong. When hope called, humans came. They reminded us what it means to fight for what is right. They reminded us that even in the darkest times, courage can shine brighter than any weapon. The crowd cheered. Children waved flags. Soldiers saluted. For the first time in generations, the galaxy felt free. On the frontier worlds, survivors of Dominion occupation rebuilt their communities. Human engineers trained locals in technology, medicine, and defense. Children learned the history of the battles and the courage of those who fought for them. A young Mevin girl looked at a human engineer and asked, "Why did you come so far just to help us?" The engineer smiled. Because no one should live in fear. Because when someone calls for help, humans do not ignore it. And because hope is stronger than any empire. The girl nodded slowly, understanding something she had never been taught before. True strength is not in power, but in the courage to fight for what is right. In the stars above, scattered Dominion survivors fled. Some hid, others tried to regroup, but humanity's message had been sent loud and clear. The galaxy now knew, the Dominion could destroy worlds, but it could not destroy hope. It could crush fleets, but it could not crush courage. And when humans arrived, even the most powerful forces had to reconsider everything they believed about victory. Ward stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, staring at a distant sunrise over the Sol system. The battlefields were behind them, but the galaxy's future stretched before them, wide and full of possibility. He whispered quietly. They claimed victory too soon. The illusion is gone, Mira Halen joined him. And now? She asked. Now, Ward replied. We help them rebuild. We make sure freedom lasts. We remind the galaxy that humans fight not for power, but for hope. And that is stronger than anything they could ever imagine. Across the galaxy, from Vora Prime to distant outposts, ships and settlements celebrated. The people sang songs of victory, of courage, and of unity. Stories of humanity spread faster than fleets could travel. Everywhere, children looked up at the stars, dreaming of what humans could do, imagining themselves as part of something greater than themselves. And in every story, in every heart there was the same understanding. The galaxy was not won by fear. It was won by those who arrived when hope called. Humanity arrived, and the stars will never forget. As the sun rose over Earth and the outer colonies, Commander Ward stood alone for a moment, looking at the galaxy. He thought of every battle, every loss, every life saved. Then he smiled. We came late, but we came prepared. And we came to remind the galaxy that freedom will never die while humans stand for it. The galaxy had a new dawn. The Dominion's illusion of power was shattered. Freed worlds began to govern themselves. Children laughed, engineers built, and hope flowed through star systems once silent with fear. Humanity had returned, and the stars would never be the same again.